Like we talked about earlier, AI is the new frontier the US has to win to remain the most powerful country in the world. Showing the power on a global stage by improving supply chains, logistics, and infrastructure isn't enough. A conflict like this becomes a demonstration of strength. It sends a message to other countries: if you step out of line, this could be you. The United States could use this moment to demonstrate its military and technological dominance the same way it showed overwhelming force in Japan during the 1940s. I saw a post on Twitter a little while ago, and it laid 3 options for the Trump administration. I'm going to walk through each one and give my thoughts. First, leave Iran now before things escalate. I don't think this will happen for 2 reasons. First, the United States and Israel have already carried major military strikes. After weeks of bombings and heavy destruction, it will be extremely difficult for Iran to simply return to a normal life. From the perspective of Iranian citizens, too much damage and loss would have happened. Second, they have shown that they can strike targets across the region and disrupt key global trade routes, like the Strait of Hormuz, the waterway that is critical because of much of the world's oil supply passes through it. The Gulf states are deeply tied to the United States through energy markets, financial systems, so instability there creates a global economic pressure. Because of that leverage, Iran would have little incentive to step back without security guarantees. Military withdrawal. If the US withdrew immediately, Iran would respond by accelerating its nuclear program. Any informal limits or negotiations would likely collapse. Iran would strengthen proxy groups and build deeper military relationships with Russia and China. That outcome would increase long-term instability for the United States. It would also damage America's credibility. After major destruction and loss of life, leaving without a resolution would make the United States appear unreliable as a global power. The only clear benefit would be fewer casualties in the short term. Long-term risk could grow if regional proxy conflicts continue and shipping routes remain threatened. Nuclear option. The nuclear response feels unrealistic and extremely dangerous. The only scenario where it would become possible if every other military strategy fails and Iran remains capable of sustained resistance. Iran's geography makes a ground invasion difficult. Mountainous terrains, long supply routes, and heavy fortified facilities create major challenges for any occupying force. That reality increases the temptation to rely on overwhelming air power and extreme deterrence. A nuclear detonation in the region would create environmental devastation, economic shock, and global political backlash. Russia and China have avoided direct military involvement so far. A nuclear strike could force them to reconsider and escalate their support for Iran. Global alliances would shift quickly. The United States would lose significant international trust because of its long-time position itself as a defender of nuclear restraint and global stability. Using such a weapon would contradict decades of non-proliferation efforts and humanitarian principles. Strategically, nuclear weapons are designed for deterrence. Using one in a situation would create unpredictable escalation and long-term global consequences that outweigh any short-term battle advantages. Putting troops on the ground. This looks like the most likely scenario if the conflict intensifies. Military planners often target air defenses first to establish air superiority that allows safer movement for aircraft, surveillance systems, and possible troop deployments. Discussions about disabling radar systems, missile batteries, and command center usually signal preparation for deeper operations. At the same time, government messaging has sounded inconsistent. Some officials emphasize limited objectives, while others use language that suggests broader goals. That creates confusion whether the mission is deterrence, containment, or regime change. Iran appears prepared for a long conflict. Their strategy focuses on endurance and regional disruption rather than quick battlefield victories. They could use naval mines, cyber attacks, and proxy forces to strengthen the conflict across multiple areas. Targeting commercial shipping, energy infrastructure, and international companies raises the economic cost of war without requiring large-scale battles. Now, how can AI be used in a conflict like this? This is where things get interesting. Modern warfare increasingly relies on artificial intelligence for speed, precision, and coordination. AI will most likely support intelligence analysis by processing satellite imagery, drone surveillance, and communication data faster than any human analyst. That allows militaries to identify targets, track equipment movement, and predict enemy actions in real time. Autonomous and semi-autonomous drones could help perform reconnaissance or precision strikes with reduced risk to personnel. AI systems can also help coordinate missile defenses by detecting incoming threats by calculating interception paths within seconds. Logistics is another major area. AI can optimize supply routes, fuel distribution, equipment maintenance schedules, and troop movement planning. Keeping forces supplied becomes more efficient and less vulnerable to disruption. Cyber options would also rely heavily on AI. Systems could defend networks, detect intrusion, and respond to digital attacks instantly. Offensive cyber tools might target communication infrastructure and financial systems or military command networks. Information warfare plays a role as well. AI tools can analyze social media trends, monitor public sentiment, detect coordinating misinformation campaigns. Governments use that data to manage narratives and maintain domestic and international support. If used effectively, AI becomes a force multiplier. It allows faster decisions, more accurate targeting, and tighter coordination across military branches. Demonstrating these capabilities send a global message about technology dominance without relying only on traditional firepower. At the end of the day, the war has been an incredible mistake. The US and its allies have placed themselves in a very difficult position. For one, the conflict risks expand far beyond Iran itself. Iran sits in one of the most strategically important regions in the area. Any escalation threatens global energy supplies, especially with the Strait of Hormuz nearby. Even temporary disruption there can drive oil prices up and shock the global economy. Countries in Europe and Asia that rely on Middle Eastern energy could immediately feel the consequences. The conflict also strengthens Iran's long-standing argument that it must defend itself against foreign intervention. Military strikes can push a country towards greater militarization and make compromise politically impossible. Leaders in Tehran can now rally public support around resistance and national survival. When a population believes it is under attack, internal divisions tend to shrink and opposition voices disappear. Another major issue is global credibility. The United States often presents itself as a stabilizing force and defender of international norms. A large conflict that leads to heavy destruction and civilian casualties damages that image. Countries in the global south already question Western leadership and propaganda wars, and a prolonged war adds more skepticism. Allies may remain supportive publicly, yet many governments quietly begin to hedge their bets and explore relationships with other powers. There's also the geopolitical impact. Russia and China gain opportunities from instability in the region. Both countries can deepen ties with Iran through trained weapons operations and diplomatic support. The longer the conflict drags on, the easier it becomes for those partnerships to grow. That shifts the balance of power and makes the global system more fragmented. Finally, there is a human cost. Wars in the Middle East have shown again and again that initial military goals rarely unfold the way planners expect. Conflicts stretch longer, civilian suffering increases, and rebuilding takes decades. Even if one side achieves tactical victories, the region often ends up more unstable than before. When you add all of these together, the United States and its allies face a situation with very few clean outcomes.